Good evening and welcome to Mrs. Spencer's Math Lab. If you're coming for the first time, welcome. If you're coming back because you've been coming every week, good to see you again. Today we are going to do some two-step equations. While I am introducing the lesson for today, I'd like for those of you who don't already have it, get your pencil, your paper, get your minds positive. Say math is easy, it's a breeze. And hit the little arrows on the side so that you can see me better. And let's get ready to go. Okay, today we're going to do two-step equations. But before we go into that, because it will take me 2 minutes to teach you that lesson, I must first be sure that you have what you need to go into that lesson. First of all, you need to know how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide integers. Then you need to be sure that you know how to solve one-step equations. And after we go through that, because that's review for those of you who have been coming every week, we'll be ready to, in 2 minutes, I can teach you how to do two-step equations. So let's go to a little review of integers. All right, I'm going to put some examples on the board, and I want you to give me the answers. And hopefully you can do that without using your number line. All right, let's start with those three. 4 minus 6, negative 2 minus 4, and 6 minus negative 8. All right, I'll give you a moment to work with it. And let's just remember that when we're subtracting, and all of these signs say subtract, this sign says negative, and this sign says negative. All right, so this says 4 minus 6, negative 2 minus 4, 6 minus negative 8. All right, let's see how well you did with that. We have said that subtracting integers is the same as adding the opposite of the integer that follows the minus sign. So these are the integers that follow the minus sign. These are the minus signs. All right, so for the first one then, it's 4 plus the opposite of 6, 4 plus negative 6. All right. And then what we do, we find the absolute value of negative 6 is 6. The absolute value of 4 is 4. And remember, the absolute value is the distance the integer is from 0. So we subtract 6 minus 4, which is 2. And the sign is negative because the integer with the larger absolute value is negative. All right. Let's do the second one. Negative 2 plus the opposite of positive 4, which is negative 4. And the answer again is negative 2. Absolute value of 4, which is 4, minus the absolute value of 2, which is 2, equals negative 2. And you know, it's just odd that all of these ends up being 2's, and it wasn't planned. All right, 6 plus the opposite of negative 8, which is 8, equals 14. All right, hopefully you got those three correct. So when we subtract, we add the opposite of the number that follows the minus sign, right? I have a few more that I want you to try with addition. All right, let's do negative 2 plus negative 4. All right, and let's do negative 4 plus negative 6. And let's do 6 plus negative 8. All right. So if we have this, we're almost ready to go into doing the two-step equations. All right, I'm giving you a moment to do it. All right, let's go with the first one. Say it with me. I can't hear you, but it's negative 2 plus negative 4. We have two negatives being added. A negative plus a negative is a negative. So the sum is negative. And we add the absolute values. 2 plus 4 is 6. All right, again, we have the same situation. Negative 4 plus negative 6, again, is two negatives. And we add absolute value of 4 plus absolute value of 6 is 10. Both are negative, so the sum is negative. All right, and 6 plus negative 8. All right, the absolute value of the larger absolute value is the absolute value of negative 8 is 8, so it's negative. The larger absolute value is negative, so 8 minus 6 is 2. Negative 2. All right, hopefully you got all of those correct. I think I have given you each type of example, except let's do yes, 4 plus negative 10. All right, what did you get for that answer? Let me know. All right, 4 plus negative 10. All right, the absolute value, large absolute value is the absolute value of negative 10, which is 10. And its sign is negative, so the sum is negative. And we have 10 minus 4 is 6. All right, so that should review integers. So in order to do these two-step equations, one skill we need is to add and subtract integers. All right, let's do some multiplication and division. All right, let's do 3 times negative 4. Let's do negative 4 times negative 6. And let's do 4 times 8. And let's see what I haven't done. Okay, negative 6 times 7. So I have each type up here that you should be able to do. All right, now let's review the multiplication. When the signs are alike, the sum is negative. It's positive, I'm sorry. And when the signs are different, the product is negative. Let me say that again. I got tongue-tied. When the signs are alike in multiplication, the product is positive. When the signs are different in multiplication, the product is negative. Okay. Got a tongue-tied problem today. All right, so 3 times 4 is 12. The signs are different. One is positive and the other is negative, so it's negative. That's like adding -4 3 times. -4 plus -4 plus -4 is -12. All right, these signs are like -4 times -6. So the sum is positive, and I'm going to put it here just for, we don't always write positives, but I'm going to put it there just for you to remember that. And 4 times 6 is 24. All right, both positives. 4 times 8 is 32. And of course, it's positive. And -6 times 7 is the same as 7 times -6. And if I add 7 negative 6s, it's going to be negative. And 6 times 7 is 42. So, in multiplying, when the signs are the same, the product is positive. When the signs of the integers are not the same, then the product is negative. Okay? Hopefully you're making an A on this little quiz I'm giving you. And let's see. Let's say do some division now. All right, for division, let's try these. -12 divided by 4. All right, let's do 12 divided by -4. All right, let's do okay, let's do 12 divided by 4. Okay, I'll just keep the numbers simple. It's not the numbers that I'm interested in. I'm interested in your getting the process. And let's see, what have I missed? 12 divided by 4. I think I've got enough examples for you to remember the process. All right, if you know how to multiply, then the signs are the same in multiplication and division. So when the signs are alike, then the quotient is positive. When the signs are not alike, then the quotient is negative. All right? All right, let's look at it another way. We can look at it, and I'll show you with the multiplication. 12 divided by 4 is 3. All right? And is it positive or negative? Well, it's positive. It's negative. How do we know that? Because when we check it by doing this, -3 times 4 is -12. So if you know multiplication, you can do the division. All right, we already know how to do this. 4 divided by 12 is 3, and it's positive 3. Everything's positive, so it's positive. All right, and we have 12 divided by 4. And I meant to say, let me put another one up here. I have the negatives. Okay, which I'm trying to remember which one I don't have. I have, okay, that's a negative divided by a positive divided by a negative. All right, and a negative divided by a negative. Okay. And again, the answer is 3. All right. Is it positive or negative? It is positive because positive 3 times negative 4 equals negative 12. All right, and I think I have done the examples to show each different way. All right, so when we have opposite signs, it's negative. When we have the same signs, it's positive. All right, so let's hope that you have mastered that, because in our equations, we're going to have to add and subtract positive and negative numbers, multiply and divide positive and negative numbers. The other thing that we must also have is how to do one-step equations. So let's do some one-step equations. X plus 4 equals 9. X plus 6 equals 9. Solve for x. I know what the answer is, and you do too. But that's not what I'm after. I'm after the one step that you have to do to solve this equation to get the answer. All right, x minus 6 equals 9. Okay. Three times x equals 9. And let's do x divided by 3 equals 9. All right, keeping the numbers simple so that you can show me that you understand the process. All right, so it's one step. And in the one step, what we do is we do the inverse operation of what is being done to the variables. And I'm just overusing the X, but it could be any alphabet. All right. So in each case, what we want to know is what is being done to the variable. Here we're adding 6. Here we're subtracting 6. Here we're multiplying by 3. Here we're dividing by 3. And there's one more that I'm going to put up after we do these. So the opposite of adding is subtracting. And we have to do the same operation on both sides. So x equals 3. All right. What is being done to the variable here? Is subtracting 6. What's the opposite of subtracting 6? Adding 6. So we add 6 to both sides. And that's kind of close here. And of course, negative 6 plus positive 6 gives us 0. So we have x equals 9 plus 6, 15. All right, I'm going to move this down a little bit. 3x equals 9. Move it over here. 3x equals 9. 3x means 3 times x. The opposite or inverse operation of multiplying by 3 is dividing by 3. And remember, this says 3x divided by 3, not 3x over 3. Please use the operational sign when you do an equation so you remember what the inverse operation is. So we must also divide 9 by 3. 9 divided by 3. And we get x equals 3. All right, I purposely didn't put any negatives in this because I just want to see if you have the process. And we're going to put it all together in a few minutes. All right, this says x divided by 3 equals 9. So what is the opposite of dividing by 3? Multiplying by 3. So I'm going to have 3 times, and I'm going to use this little dot, times x divided by 3 equals 9 divided by 9 times 3. 9 times 3. So we multiply both sides by 3. The 3's cancel out. Remember that from fractions. X then equals 9 times 3, which is 27. All right, and when we put this back in this equation, 3 plus 6 equals 9. So this is correct. Put this back in this equation. 15 minus 6 is 9. So this is correct. And this equation, 3 times 3 is 9. All right, in this equation, then 27 divided by 3 is 9. All right, I hope you did those well. And I have one other type that I have not put up there yet. All right, 3/4 B, get rid of the x's, equals 9. Okay. All right, this is a fraction. The variable is being multiplied by a fraction. And what I taught you to do, and there's something else we can do as well, I'm going to show you a little later. What I taught you to do was to multiply by the reciprocal. The reciprocal of 3/4 is 4/3. Remember that? So it's 4/3 times 3/4 B equals 4/3 times 9. All right, and we know that the product of reciprocals is 1. So this says 1b, and I'm not going to write the 1, equals, and now we have to multiply 4/3 times 9. All right, and I haven't talked about canceling before, so I won't do that. 4 times 9 is what? 36. Divided by 3, and that's 12. All right, so B equals 12. Notice that this is on my scratch paper. When you're doing an equation, it should be only something on the left and something on the right, not 2 or 3 equal signs unless you're doing it horizontally. All right, we're doing it vertically, and I'm going to show you both ways today. All right, so we should be ready for what we have as our objective for today, and that is two-step equations. Because we have everything that we need in order to do them. So we're going to apply that to this. So I can tell you in 1 minute or less how to do two-step equation. All you need to know is, what do you do first? If it's 2 steps, what is the order of the steps? So I'm going to put that on the board, and I want you to make a note of this. The order of operations for two-step equations is first addition or subtraction. And notice I didn't say one had to come before the other. Whichever one is in the equation, the addition or the subtraction, and then you do the multiplication or the division. And again, what tells us what we're going to do is what's being done to the variable. So every time we approach an equation, we must ask, what is happening to that variable? And then we know what order to do it. So just think of AM. AM. There are a lot of acronyms people use, but I don't like to use acronyms that don't have mathematical terms in it, because sometimes students can say the acronym and don't know the mathematical terms. So I'm interested in you learning the mathematical terms. AM, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. All right, and we told these are inverse operations, so it's easy to remember. When we talk about addition, the inverse is subtraction. Talk about multiplication, the inverse is division. All right, so with that in mind, I'm going to keep it up here for a little while, and then I'm going to take it down. with that in mind, let's try some. All right, let's do 2x plus 4 equals 10. 2x plus 4, 2 times x plus 4 equals 10. The variable is x. What is being done to the variable? It's being multiplied by, well, let's look for additions first. 4 is being added, and it's being multiplied by 2. All right, this is my little scratch paper here. All right, then you say, what is the opposite of each? The opposite of adding 4 is subtracting 4. Okay. And the opposite of multiplying by 2 is dividing by 2. Now, all that has to take place in your mind when you're doing an equation. After a while, you'll do it so automatically that it happens immediately. But I'm going through each thought process that you have to have. Now we know what we have to do. We have to subtract 4, and we have to divide by 2. And the order is to do the additions first. All right, so the addition or subtraction. So we're going to do the subtraction. We're going to subtract 4 from both sides of the equation. All right, now you do that. I'm going to wait a second for you to do. You know this is going to equal 0, and we're only going to have what left? Okay, I'm going to wait a minute. And I hope you wrote 2x equals 6. All right, the next step is to divide by 2. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2. This says 2x divided by 2. And of course, the 2's cancel out, and that's x. And 6 divided by 2 is 3. All right, let's see if that's correct. 2 times 3 plus 4 equals 10. Is that correct? 2 times 3 is 6. Plus 4 equals 10. Is that correct? And notice I'm not just automatically putting it there. I'm working. I have had students get a wrong answer and plug it in and make it right. Do the checking. Do it honestly. 6 plus 4 is 10. So both sides are equal to 10. And this is called an identity because they are identical. Both sides say the same thing. Okay, hopefully you got that. Let's try another. I hope I'm not erasing too fast for some of you, because I had a professor that as soon as he wrote something on the board, he erased it. And we had a hard time trying to keep up with that physics teacher. Until finally we asked him, would he please ask us if we needed to look at it a little more. 4x minus 10 minus 6 equals 2. All right, and do your little wiggly work over here. All right, this is a two-step equation. This is the variable. We look for addition or subtraction. It's subtracting 6. And the opposite of subtracting 6 is adding 6. This is my little mental process. All right. And it's multiplied by 4. And the opposite of multiplying by 4 is dividing by 4. All right, so this is the thought process that you have to have. Now, which do I do first? I do the addition and then the division. All right, so I'm going to let you do that for a moment. And then I'm going to come back and work with you. Remember, you only do one step at a time. Now, perhaps you could do two, but I think that would be confusing. Even as a teacher, I wouldn't want to do them both at the same time. And I think I could, but that would be a little hectic for students. Okay, so we add 6. And you should have gotten 4 times x equals 8. And you divide by 4. And you should have gotten x equals 2. If you did, tell me I got it so that I can see if you understand how this is done. And check it. Check it to see. So you just plug in for x. 4 times 2 minus 6 equals 2. And continue that. All right, remember I just want 2 sides to the equation. And it should be an equal sign. Mine isn't neat enough. But I usually have my equal signs all under each other so that I can keep the equation, keep the balance. Because that's all you're doing is balancing it. It's just like having a scale and weighing something. And you have 2 sides, and the 2 sides have to be balanced in order to determine the weights. So what we want to do is find the value of the variable. And we can't find it until we get the variable on one side and the numerical part on the other side. All right. All right, I'm going to give you another. I'm going to say it before I erase because someone's probably copying. 3/4 x plus 7 equals 16. 3/4 x plus 7 equals 16. All right, while you're starting on that, I'm thinking maybe someone else is looking at this, and I'm going to erase it in a moment. Okay, so let's work with that. 2-step equations. And of course, there are equations that have more than 2 steps, and we'll look at some of those, not tonight, but we'll look at some of those. But I have to prepare you for doing the other steps that they're involved. And so when we get through, we'll have a little acronym for multi-step equations. And so that would include 2 steps as well as 3 or 4 steps. Because sometimes we can have parentheses and powers and other terms in our equation. But at this time, we're just working with 2 steps. Okay, so on your little mind, you should be looking for addition or subtraction. We have addition. We're adding 7. So the opposite of adding 7 is subtracting 7. All right. And we have multiplication by a fraction. So multiplication, I'm going to say fraction. And that we're going to do the reciprocal of that fraction. All right. So that's my little thought pattern. All right. So the fraction is 3/4. Its reciprocal then is 4/3. Okay, so now we're ready to put that into action. So we subtract 7 from both sides and rewrite 3/4 x. And of course that cancels itself out. equals 16 minus 7 is 9. All right. And now we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. Multiply by the reciprocal. All right. And so that's 4/3 times 3/4 x equals 4/3 times 9. Okay, and of course that's 9 over 1. If we want to make it look like a fraction. And on this side, of course, everything cancels out and we get x equals 36 divided by 3. I'll write it. And so x equals 12. Notice I didn't go out that way because the equation just has two sides. So I don't put equals, equals, equals. Just keep two sides all the way down each step, and you won't get it confused. All right, so notice I haven't used anything but positive integers. So we're going to get a little creative now and see if we can use some negatives as well. All right, so let's go with x divided by 2 minus 9 equals negative 6. All right, I think I can take this down now. And so I'll allow time for others to copy this. All right, x divided by 2 minus 9 equals negative 6. Now comes to play your knowledge of the integers. All right, so again, do your little brain work. And what I usually tell my students, your pencil is a dummy. You are the brain. So don't just start writing as soon as you look at a problem. Look at the problem and think about it for a moment. So now we have to ask ourselves what it's doing and being done to the variable. And we're going to look for additions and subtractions first. So we have subtraction. So we're subtracting 9. Opposite of subtracting 9 is adding 9. All right. Look for multiplication and division or division. We're dividing by 2. And opposite of dividing by 2 is multiplying by 2. All right, so once we've done that little mental work, all we have to do is apply it. So go ahead and do that problem. See how many of you can get it correctly done. All right, let's see. It shouldn't take you long now that you have done the mental work. Never start pressing that pencil before you do the mental work that you have to do. All right, so first we're going to add 9 to both sides. Okay, so we know over here we're going to have x divided by 2 equals, because we know that this is equal to 0. We walk 9 steps up and 9 steps back. We haven't gone anywhere. We're right at 0. All right, so on my scratch paper, I may need to do this. Subtracting 9 is the same as adding the opposite of 9. So that's negative 6 plus the opposite of positive 9, which is negative 9. And that equals negative 15. Hope you did that correctly. Notice I didn't try to put all that up here. I could have, but we want just two sides to our equation and we don't want it junky. So some things we do mentally or on our scratch paper and then put it in our problem. So that's negative 15. All right. the next step is to multiply both sides by 2. So 2 times x divided by 2 equals 2 times negative 15. All right, so I'm going to get this other part off. I'm sure you're finished with that. All right, go ahead and complete the problem. I didn't mean to erase that. Okay, so of course we know we multiply by reciprocals, because this is like 1/2 and this is like 2/1, or when either way, or when you think of it as just canceling out the 2's, x equals negative 30. Did you get negative 30? If you got positive 30, it's just incorrect, because we know negative 30 is on the left side of the 0 and positive 30 is on the right side of the 0. So they're not even the same numbers at all. They have the same absolute value, but they're certainly not the same amount. $30 in the bank is not like $30 overdrawn. So it's just the same thing in solving an equation. All right, let's check it. Negative 30 divided by 2 minus 9 equals negative 6. Let's see. We're dividing 2 into 30, that's 15. And of course, the signs are the opposite, so this is negative 15. Minus 9 equals negative 6. All right. All right, so we're subtracting. All right. Okay, let's go ahead with it. And so we have negative 15 plus the opposite of 9, which is positive negative 9. Okay, so what did we do? Something wrong here? Let's check. So I'm checking myself here. Okay, we're negative 6.
Plus 9.
Huh?
Plus 9. The top, second line. Plus.
Okay, here's my mistake. So see, that happened, and it's good that happened. Because how did I know something was wrong with this? Did you catch it?
Yeah.
Did you catch it? So if I hadn't checked, I would not have known that I had omitted something. So I see my mistake because I should have what? Added 9. I hope you did that. Did you? If you do, I salute you. All right, so I'm going to have to go back up. And that happened, and I'm glad that happened, because that lets you know that if you make a mistake in a problem and you honestly check it, you can do it correctly. You'll know whether or not you have done it correctly. All right, so in my writing and talking, I had a minus on one side. And how many noticed that? Because we said you have to have the same thing done to both sides. So here's where my mistake was in talking. All right, negative 6 plus 9. Yeah, here it is. Negative 6 plus 9. I hope you caught that. But it was good that that happened, because anyone can make a mistake, even the teacher. But because the teacher checks, I found out something was wrong here, because the answers were, the checking process was not coming out correctly. So that's a good example to show you that you always need to check. All right, so negative 6 plus 9 is positive 3. Okay, the absolute value of 6 is 6, and of 9 is 9. 9 minus 3 is 6. And the one with the higher absolute value is positive. All right, now we're ready to multiply by both sides by 2. All right, so we have 2 times x divided by 2 equals 2 times 3. And x then equals 6. Okay. All right, so let's check this out and see if this is correct. So going back to our original problem, in place of x now, I'm going to write, this is the checking. I'm going to write 6 divided by 2 minus 9 equals negative 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 minus 9 equals negative 6. And right here, these are question marks, because we are not assuming that it's correct. We're seeing if it's correct. So 3 minus 9 means 3 minus the opposite of 9, which is negative 9. 3 plus negative 9. And that's negative what? 6. Negative 6 equals negative 6. So it is correct, and the solution is x equals 6. All right. All right. You have questions? Shoot the questions. Shoot the questions. All right. So there are 2 steps to solving 2-step equations. AM. Add, subtract, multiply, divide. Okay? Add, subtract, multiply, and divide. That's the order of the steps. So if you have more than one thing, we have to have an order so that everybody does it alike. If some people did it the opposite way, then they may get another answer. All right, so the order to this is that we do additions and subtractions first, and and multiplications and divisions after. And the variable tells us what we must do. And whatever is being done to the variable, whatever operation is on that variable, we do the opposite operation. All right, if you have questions, ask them. If you got it, say got it. I hope that all of us are now 2-stepping equations. All right, so we have time for a couple more. So let's try this one. Okay, C, don't use another variable, divided by 6 minus 1 equals negative 3. C divided by 6 minus 1 equals negative 3. Don't forget to do your brain work first. Do your thought process. Don't just start doing something. Even if you don't write it down, you need to do it. I don't necessarily write it down, and you won't either as you get proficient in doing it. But even though I don't write it down, I look at this problem and I ask those same questions, and I do it mentally. And when you can do that, that's good. If you already can do that, that's good. But if not, don't fail to write it on the side so that you don't forget what it is that you are doing. All right? Tell me what your solution is. Tell me what you think that solution is. I'm hesitating because I want you to solve it and check it. Solve this equation and check it. Okay. 2-step equations are very simple if you have all the other skills that you need. And notice we went over the skills first. We went over integers, and we went over 1-step equations, and we went over the way that we do each one of those. And then the new thing just took a few minutes just to say the order that we do it in is the additions and subtractions, or subtractions, and multiplications or divisions. And notice I just put a little a little mark between, because it doesn't mean that you have to do all additions before you do any subtractions. No, because you're either going to have one or the other. And you're either going to have multiplication or division in two-step equations. So you're not going to have all the operations, not in 2 steps. Okay, let's see what you did. All right, I'm going to write it up here so that those who didn't do it mentally can do it. I'm looking for additions and subtracting. I subtracted 1. The opposite of subtracting 1 is adding 1. All right, I'm dividing by 6. The opposite of dividing by 6 is multiplying by 6. So this is what I have to do to solve the equation. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides. Okay, and I'm going to have C divided by 6 equals -3 plus 1. Opposite signs, I'm going to subtract the absolute value. 3 minus 1 is 2. And the larger absolute value has a sign, the number with the larger absolute value has a sign negative. All right, so that's -2. The next thing is to multiply by 6. 6 times C divided by 6 equals 6 times -2. And I'm going to do that. And I don't really, actually, we just put that in parentheses. That says 6 times -2. All right, so C equals 6 times -2 is -12. All right, how many got -12? All right, let's see if that's correct. C, which is 12, -12. This is the checking. So in place of C, I'm writing -12 divided by 6 minus 1 equals -3. All right, -12 divided by 6 is 2. It's negative because these are opposites. All right, minus 1 equals -3. All right, we're subtracting is adding the opposite. So over here, that means we have -2. And this is my little workspace. -2 plus the opposite of 1, which is -1. -2 plus -1 is -3. So -3 equals -3. So the equation checks. All right, I hope you got it. If you got it, say got it. That encourages me to know that you are following and you are doing it well. All right, we have about 2 minutes, so I'm not going to put another one up. I'm going to, well, we have a little longer. I'll put one more up. We have a little longer. I was looking at the wrong clock. All right, if you got it, put got it. Especially students, those who didn't know how to do it. If you already knew, it's just a review for you. But if you did not know how to do it or had forgotten, then this should revive it for you. Okay, our last one for tonight is y divided by -2 equals, just a moment, let me get it right, plus 7 equals -12. All right, I'm going to pause a moment because I want you to do it. And when you finish, and check it, I want you to say, got it, so that I'll know that you have learned to solve two-step equations. And the only new thing you had to learn tonight was what order do I do it in? Because you knew everything else. And we reviewed that before we did it. Y divided by -2 plus 7 equals negative 12. Think about the order of operations. See what is being done to the variable. Do the inverse operations in the right order. And you got it. All right. Give me your answers. Shoot me your answers before we do it on the board here. All right. So I'm going to, for the benefit of those who still need this, we're adding 7. The opposite of adding 7 is subtracting 7. We're dividing by negative 2. Opposite of dividing by negative 2 is multiplying by negative 2. So those are 2 steps, and in the order that we're going to do them. All right, we subtract 7. Okay, so we have y divided by negative 2. The reason we did this inverse operation is so that we could get the y term over here by itself. All right, and then we have negative 12 plus the opposite of 7, negative 12, negative 12 plus the opposite of positive 7, which is negative 7. Adding 2 negatives, we get a negative. We add the absolute values, and we get negative 19. All right, negative 19. All right, then we have to multiply both sides by negative 2. So negative 2 times y divided by 2, negative 2, equals negative 2 times negative 19. All right, and you notice I'm not using the times sign because sometimes that get confused with the x variable, and I don't want that. So this is another way we write times. Without the sign, we can use the dots, but when we have signs like this, it's best to use the little parentheses. All right, of course, these cancel out, and we have y equals 2 times 9 is 19 is 38. Negative times a negative is a positive. Okay? Checking it. Let's check. Okay, for y, we're going to write 38 divided by negative 2 plus 7 equals negative 12. Right now, we're questioning that. All right, 2 will go into 38 19 times. Okay, the sign is negative because we have a positive and a negative. All right, plus 7 equals negative 12. Okay, we're still questioning. We haven't decided that's right. So what is the sum of negative 19 plus 7? All right, negative 19, they're opposite signs. So we subtract. 19 minus 7 is 12. The sign of the integer with the larger absolute value is negative. So this is negative 12 equals negative 12. And when we get both sides saying the same thing, an identity, then we know we are correct. All right, so tonight we two-stepped some equations. And we had everything we need except the order. And so that's how the math builds. So tonight I didn't have to teach you integers. I didn't have to teach you operations with one-step equations. I did not have to teach you only the things that was different. The only thing that was different was what is the order that I do two-step equations. And so we were prepared to already do everything that we had to do, every operation, but we just only needed the order. So that's the only thing I taught you tonight, the order of solving two-step equations. So I hope that you have reviewed it. If you have had it before and you knew how to do it, if you already knew how to do it, I hope you practiced just for fun. And if it was new to you, I hope that you learned how to do this tonight. So again, I say two-step equations are fun, they're easy, and anybody can do them. So I'll see you next week with a little more depth into equations, and then after that we'll go into some other concepts. So have a great rest of the week, and don't forget to join Mrs. Spencer's Math Lab next Tuesday.